What is up? Welcome to the Existential Stoic podcast. Do you have old people in your life? Have you ever been around the dying? Have you ever struggled to accept death or deal with it? Today, here, look, we're going to talk about how to learn from the elderly and the dying. It's going to be an interesting episode. I'm Danny here, my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Yo, Danny.
Have you ever learned anything from the elderly and the dying?
I
Anything at
have.
all?
Strangely enough, ever since I've been a kid, I've always looked forward to being old for some weird reason. But also, I love the perspective that old people have because stuff just doesn't phase them. Like I remember whenever I would have problems when I was younger, my grandmother would always be like, "Well, that's what makes life interesting." And I'm like, "No, it's not. I have a problem right now. Can't you see?" And yeah, but it's like they have
Yeah.
a whole different perspective on life.
Yeah, there is a perspective that comes with age that, I think is valuable to understand. And it's hard to understand when you're young, but like you do, yeah, it's definitely something there that helps a lot. I've also noticed, we both experienced a lot of death in our lives, and I think that is also like something that can be very helpful in a way and like help you understand life better or get a different perspective on it, which, can be good to have, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we each have three tips to help you learn from the elderly and the dying. I'm going to start. My first one is actually work with them. There's lots of ways I think you can work with the elderly and the dying. You can, volunteer. You can help someone out. Like I remember I used to help out my neighbor. He was an 86-year-old gentleman. With like mowing the lawn and stuff around the house, and just would chat with him while I was doing that. You can, go workplaces or just. I'm sure everybody's got somebody old in their lives or something that they can help out. And I think doing that, you get to see how they live. You get to see kind of what they deal with. Kind of, you get a better sense of their perspective, their thoughts, and I think it can be really informative and valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. I remember even just like working when I would have jobs, I would be working with old people, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
helpful.
that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That somewhat coincides with mine, which my first one I had like engage the elderly or talk with them because oftentimes we think there's a barrier, like there's some big difference between people who are older than us and people who are younger than us. And I remember my grandmother when I was young, she would always say like in her mind she still thought she was 18 years old. And
yeah.
and I would look at her and I'm like, you're not 18 years old. But
You're definitely not 18.
but like, as I get older, I see the same thing. I still in my mind think I'm younger than I am. And so I'm sure they feel like just, just interact with them and then treat them as a human being and you can learn stuff from them.
No, I think that's a good point because it's so easy. Like, the news and media and stuff loves to make the distinctions between different like generations, and people are like, oh, you stupid boomers or whatever, and like people that don't understand technology and stuff, but like why would they? They didn't grow up with it. They didn't have an iPhone when they were 2 years old. They
Mhm.
didn't have TVs everywhere. So it's like,
Yeah, they
once
were
you
busy
get past
saving
that,
the world. Like literally, when they were 18, they were saving the world from like crazy domination. Yeah. So
yeah.
what if they can't use technology?
Yeah, and that's the funny
Technology
part. But
wouldn't
like,
exist if it wasn't for them.
yeah, right. People love to make a big deal out of it, but I think if you get past that and you actually talk to them and actually listen, there's so much to learn and a better perspective too on life sometimes. Because 90% of the time, just talking to somebody older can be helpful just from that perspective. I've shared that story before, like my professor. Remember, I think I told you before. Remember, like, I was frustrated because I was like, he seemed to understand things so easily, and I'm like 60 years older than you. He's like, that's a lot of time to read and stuff. He's like, once you get,
Mm,
and it can be helpful to understand that. Like things take time. It
yeah.
takes time to learn.
Yeah, you don't even realize how long a year is.
No, you don't. My next one is actually read about their lives. Like there's so many good biographies. We've talked about this before. There's so many good like things you can engage with like on your own individually, but still engage with people. And I think reading's a great way to do that. So, I'd always say you should read more, but like yeah, reading biographies, reading about their lives is a great way to kind of get insights and just get a better perspective on life in general and what you might, want to avoid or their successes and failures can give you insights so you don't have to deal with the same problems.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great one. Reading because it saves you a whole bunch of time. It's like 80 years of someone's
Yeah.
life in an 8 hour book
Yeah.
or less. You're
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah. My second one is live each day as your last because one of these days you're going to be right. So, we're all going to get older, we're all going to die. And So if you have that mentality in the back of your head and just be like, okay, well, today's my last day. If I get any more days, that's the cherry on the top. But right now, today's my last day. So how can I make the best of this?
Yeah, it is crazy, isn't it, that we all think like we all deny the fact that we're going to die, or we all think we're going to live forever instead of like, and it causes us to be complacent, to not do things we should do, to not do things we want to do, right? It's like it's almost like a trap. It's like I have infinite time, so I can do whatever I want then. I'll wait till then instead of doing it now. And it's insane because it ruins your life.
You ever seen how sometimes children will be afraid to go to sleep because they're not sure if they're going to wake up?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and then like all of a sudden, sometime it happens where we just take for granted that we wake up. Like we've woken up 8 years in a row or whatever it is, and now we just take it for granted. We're like, of course I'm going to wake up tomorrow, but that is definitely not guaranteed at all.
Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting way to think of it. Yeah, I
Hmm.
like that one.
I think your last one.
Is it mine or your second one?
I just
Did
did
you
my
do
second
yours?
one. Live each day like your
Oh, okay.
last.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry. It's confusing sometimes. Thanks. My last one is accept death. I think this is I actually think this is a lot harder now. I think death used to be closer a long time ago when like birth rates were a lot like worse, when disease. I mean, I think I read something like it was in the 1940s that they realized like they could cure jaundice in babies by just putting them in sunlight. So before that, they didn't make it,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
crazy if you think about it. It's like such a simple thing. But like, there was so little we knew back then that I think death was so close and people just had a different relationship with it. And I think now it seems so far away. There's so many, and instead of like facing death or accepting it, we look at all the options we have to fight it off all the time, right? And now like scientists are working out how to like, rejuvenate the body and extend life indefinitely by trying to combat literally death and aging. And so it seems like there's all these options, but instead, part of life is death. And once you accept it, I think it makes life a lot better and a lot easier because you can
Mm-hmm.
really, I think it motivates you to live your own life. I really do. I think it's a crucial component of doing that.
Yeah, accepting death is a tricky one. Because on the one hand, it's like, yeah, of course, it's like the ultimate release. Great, wonderful. It's like just going to sleep for a long time. But on the other hand, there's all the fears associated with it. It's like one of our primal fears is fear of death.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, crazy.
yeah.
So my last one is consider your own dying wisdom. Now, this is something that I actually did myself after we did the episode of the five regrets of the dying. I sat down with my journal one day and I was like, if I'm dying, what would be my top regrets? And they were different than the five regrets for the dying, but they were very, very accurate for myself. Like like uh things like I wish I would have stopped trying to figure it out. I wish I would have
Yeah.
had like I wish I would have believed in myself at a younger age. Like these things that I still have not completed 100%, but it's just like yeah, if I, and it's something that I just read on a regular basis because it just reminds me like I have to accomplish this stuff now because eventually I'm going to be dying one day and I'm going to regret this stuff if I don't take care of it now. So I think that's a handy one. Consider your own dying wisdom.
No, I think that's smart too, especially your regrets too, because that can be like such an informative way to start thinking about how to change your life now and how to fix things before it's too late. Because it's like you said earlier, it's so easy to push things off and just assume you have time. But if you actually think about it and actually think about like what would I honestly regret? Would it be not changing jobs? Would it be like staying in this relationship? Would it be doing this or that? Or like, wasting time on these things like when I could be living my life? I think that's really important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there you have it. How to, get wisdom from the elderly and the dying. This is a quick fix. We'll be back later this week with another full length episode. Check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And until we see you again, later, Randy.
Later, Danny.